Hey, it's the Agency Growth Mastermind podcast. We're pointing the way for agencies going from 1 million to 10 million in revenue. We're generally talking to 1 million plus agencies in revenue. We're having an abundance mindset. A rising tide lifts all boats, niche focuses a lot of the time, and we're all doing our best to share as much value as possible. We consider this like a mastermind, but people are very busy, right? Smart people are very busy. Successful people are very busy. So what we're trying to do is have these conversations and scale them out so other people can listen to them, and so that we're not just selfishly hoarding all this awesome mentorship. And today with me, we have Adam Proehl of NordicClick Interactive. How you doing, Adam?
Good, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I am super excited to talk with you today. We are talking about what tasks require a senior person versus a junior person, and really how to find great employees. I guess these are kind of some of the subtopics. We'll be talking about a lot of stuff today, but in particular, I've got a quote for by you up in front of me right now. Uh-oh. Maybe you remember saying this, maybe you don't remember saying this.
Uh-oh.
But you said, if I had to choose between a good client and a good employee, I'm choosing the employee.
Yes.
So do you remember saying that? And what did you mean by that, if you do remember saying it?
I don't know if I remember saying that, but it sounds like something I would say.
Yeah. So what makes you think that, so many small business marketing agencies, all these different people are really concerned about biz dev, right? We get really obsessed with biz dev. We get all these processes around it. We sometimes are even maybe even a little mean to our employees in the process of trying to retain clients. We're trying to push people, right? So what makes you so obsessed with getting the right people in your agency?
Without that, you really don't have anything. If you don't have the right people, the clients won't last. The clients won't stick around. You won't be able to get the right clients. If you've got the wrong clients, and there have been times, I'm going to be honest, there have been times we've had clients that have been difficult to work with. I mean, every agency goes through that, right? And I don't mind, it's not so much having a client that I want clients that challenge me, that challenge our team, that challenge us to continually be better. But if you get a client that just, you don't want staff and employees to wake up in the morning and dread going to work, even if it's just, downstairs in their pajamas nowadays, if they have to deal with a client that just isn't a good client to work with. And not every client is, and that's okay. Agencies, not every client's a fit for an agency. We as an agency are not a fit for every client. Not every client's a fit for us, right? And I know that, Tim, your agency is in a niche, and so you got very specific niche you're going after, but even within that niche, it's probably there's probably some clients that just aren't for you for a variety of reasons, and that's okay.
Yep.
That's fine.
Yeah, a couple of the filtering things that we use are calm versus agitated. Right. So we believe that if you come in agitated, we're not gonna fix that.
Right.
Another one is we like growth oriented businesses, because if we actually get them a marketing result, we want them to be able to grow, to expand, to be able to take care of that business. And just basically don't sign assholes. It's kind of the thing for our salesperson.
Exactly. I mean, somebody smarter than me once said that the best thing you can do for your employees is to fire an asshole client, right? And so you got to be, and I believe that. I do believe that. We have had a couple of cases where we've had to let a client go, and it's never an easy decision, because as an owner of the company, as the one who's responsible for making sure everyone gets paid on time, right? It's never an easy decision to do that, but sometimes you have to. And I do, like I said, I don't know if I specifically remember saying that, but it does definitely sound like something I would say or write or post somewhere. And I meant it. I do. There is, if you think about this, it's like if you've got an employee who might manage, say, $40,000 or $50,000 a month worth of business, okay, or whatever that amount is, and then you've got a client versus you're balancing that with a client that maybe brings in, say, $5,000 to $7,000 a month in business. That client goes away. It's like, it's painful. It's tough to stomach. But if that employee goes away, all of a sudden, all that business that employee manages there's a risk there, right?
Weak.
There's a risk.
Yep.
There's a
Yep.
risk because they've built up relationships. They have this domain knowledge of the client's business because they've been working with them. And also the employee, if the employee goes away, it's tough to, turnover is costly. Turnover is painful. There's a lot of hidden costs in turnover, and that's
Absolutely.
it's a challenging thing. You start, we're kind of at the beginning, you want to talk a little bit about like senior level versus junior level people. And, I believe in a proper mix of both. I mean, one of the biggest challenges you have sometimes it's the dilemma, right? Where it's like, if you can spend the time, you can spend the money, you can invest in junior level people and train them up, send them to conferences, send them to shows, send them training. And then as soon as they get good enough, then you worry that they're just going to leave for a better job, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's always a risk. I think as an agency, you have to be cognizant of that, of once they do reach a certain skill level, then, certainly, you gotta pay them. You gotta promote them accordingly as they earned it. Now, I think it's also fair that then the expectations grow and change at that time. So.
Yeah. And so this has been our model, which is just, we've hired a little bit younger, but we hire for like hunger and drive and work ethic, but it's not really that obvious. Like people say that they have that no matter what. So like, it's hard to always know for sure whether they actually have that. And so we've tried, and, for the most part, we've been successful, but I'm very tired of training right now. Like and also at the same time, at a certain point, like we have 15 employees now, it's very difficult to really do that well. So at this point, I've kind of transitioned. I've enjoyed it. I think it's paid off as a risk, but then at this point, we have to get people that have been out of college for a little bit longer, just that mindset around like emotional maturity, and also just knowing that life is hard and work is hard, no matter what, no matter where you go. Having some of that life experience, having worked for somebody else, maybe they've gone through that. And frankly, I wouldn't have been able to do that my first couple of years because we didn't have the budget to hire those people. But now I'm willing to spend another 10 or 20,000 a year for those salaries because I have to. It's too tiring otherwise, basically. Like I can't actually keep on hiring super junior people and training them. And I also just don't have the time to train them. So that's kind of where we've shifted as we've gone on. But if somebody was like just starting their agency or something like that, I think you have to do some junior and train. I think at this point I have to do some senior and take some of that off of my plate, the training thing.
We grew early on a lot with also hiring. There were some junior level people, but also some contractors. So a contractor that you pay 60, 70, 80, even, $90 an hour to, who top of their game, really know their stuff, but somebody that could also kind of mentor the junior level people.
That's good.
And so that can be an effective way too. I did learn a trick with people hiring people fresh out of college or recently out of college with little experience, and I learned this actually almost thanks to COVID. So I've got 2 college age kids, and so back in March they both were stuck at home. They came home from college, and both of them were complaining about group projects that they were assigned. Yeah. And if you think back to your high school, college days, anytime when you had to do a group project, it sucked. I mean, you were in a group of 4 or 5 people, and there was like 1 or 2 people that did all the work, and the other ones just rode along, right? And it sucked. Yeah. And so both my kids were complaining. They're like, I don't know why we have to do these group projects and have our grade partially dependent upon this, when basically 1 or 2 people, I end up doing all the work. And then I'm just like kind of smiling, and it kind of came to me, and I look at my daughter and I'm like, well, that's life. Yeah. honey, that's life. I said, you're going to get into a job environment where you're going to be assigned some kind of a project, some kind of a team project. And there might be 8 or 10 people on the team. You're going to find that it's 2 or 3 people that do the bulk of the work. Yeah. And that's just life. And so what I want is I'm like, okay, if I'm going to hire somebody young, because you mentioned there are things you hire for, things that you can't train. You can't train a work ethic, right? You can't train values and morals. Either you have them or you don't. Yeah. I want the kids that did all the work in the group projects. because they're the self-starters. They're the ones that are going to take the initiative, right? I don't want the kids that just rode along. So I'm trying to figure out how do we better incorporate that into interview questions? Is it something like, tell me about a group project you were on and why you hated it, and trying to probe deeper in that. But it's like, if I think about the person I want that person who worked on the group projects and did all the work. So.
Exactly. And there's like this element of, you can kind of tell. I think sometimes with candidates, we see red flags and we ignore them because of whatever reason, they're charming or something like that.
Or you're just desperate. Sometimes you're desperate to get someone in.
Exactly. Like I'm sick of, I think that's something we have to watch. Like I'm sick of sorting through all these candidates. Sometimes it's 100, 200, 300 candidates. Like, and we've filtered them 3 times and I'm not excited about it. Does that mean we hire, or does that mean maybe it's just not the right time? That's kind of where I'm at. In some cases, like you can't force it. You can't like, if you have a role and you really want to fill it, but there's just not the right fit. It might just be a wait situation, not a, like, let's shove a square peg in a round hole situation,
Yeah, you're almost better off at that point of just having, even if it might make your profitability suffer some in the short term, you're almost better off having a network of, professional freelancers that you could just, pass off some work to. It's like, hey, we got these projects, we can't fill them right now. I need your help. And you might have to pay the contractor a little bit more because you can't find the right person internally. And that's okay. Sometimes that happens. It's way more, it's the wrong hire can really set you back. I mean, you think about it.
Oh yeah. And it takes so much emotional energy.
It does. It can set you back a year or more.
Yeah.
When you think about it. So
that's harsh, but true. So we think about the types of tasks. Let's kind of delineate this, where we've got the types of tasks that you really do need a senior person for, or the types of tasks that maybe other people can handle. So what types of tasks do you think are really senior level only, basically?
Well, if I guess, I don't know. There's a lot of, to me, it's almost like you think about something like reporting, right? So reporting, I mean, there's obviously so many ways to automate reporting and things like that, but even with a lot of automated reporting capabilities, like in Data Studio or whatever, visualization tool you use, there's still always some kind of a manual work in reporting. To me, that's absolutely something that a junior level person can be taught to do. Anything that you need anything that needs to be done, like in a spreadsheet or pulling numbers or things like that, that's something that a junior level person can do. The analysis, the client presentation, that's something you need someone with a senior level expertise, someone who's been around the block, someone who knows, anything that's kind of like the what, which is like, filling in numbers in a spreadsheet, or doing some basic keyword research, as if you're basically, it's like, okay, hey, here's these set of core keywords, go do some keyword research on this. That's a junior level person type of a task. But taking that finished project, that product, and then looking at it and then diving a little bit deeper and understanding how it applies to the specific business, whether or not, the context is there, that's something that's more of a senior level person, what to do with it. Right?
Would you say that's the why or the how? I know you said the what.
Well, so you're right. I guess when I'm thinking well, that's really the
kind of the how. It's a little bit
kind of the how, but it's a little bit of the why too when I think about it, because it's like you're taking this as like, well, here's why it matters. Here's why you should care about it.
I mean, and ultimately that's kind of like your most like senior level people in your organization, and us, right? Like as owners and as like the ultimate strategists, whoever is running that process. So like the account executives, the people up at the top that are really making the strategy happen. Why did we choose this strategy? And why do we apply it to this type of client? That's kind of like the ultimate senior level activity. And then the how might be those senior level strategists, et cetera, specialists.
Right. I think on the ultimate senior level strategist, there's one other thing I would add to that. And that is, not only can you Can you formulate the strategy? Can you explain it in simple terms to someone who's not initiated?
That's the hardest part. I
Right?
think honestly, that
hardest
really
part.
is the hardest part,
Right.
because ultimately, like, I know I trust all of our SEOs right now. In particular, we have a lot of SEO, right? All of our SEOs to know why we do things, to know how we do things, and to know what to do, and they can do it very well and even explain it in detail. But can they explain it simply? That's the hardest part, because ultimately at the end of the day, what our clients want is confidence, and simple terms is part of confidence. Like, and also just knowing with that for sure this does work over time.
Right.
And I think all of our SEOs are starting to, like, they're getting in that rhythm and stuff like that. We have still pretty young people, 2-3 years, that kind of thing. But they do have that confidence, I think, now that it works. But it's ultimately like they get challenged by clients, especially like let's say weird clients that are like kind of feisty towards the beginning. They haven't seen enough real result yet. And SEO takes a long time, right?
Right.
It's such like a hard thing, because it's like, we know this works, but like, can an SEO strategy, like how hard do we need to sell this to you in month 3, 4, 5? Well, it's kicking in and not quite there yet. That's the hardest part, because it's not really that smart to sell it to them so hard that, like, when they get 100% more traffic year over year, they're still dissatisfied, right? Like, that's a hard thing. And what I'd like to just kind of go off topic here for a second and kind of talk through something with you. Maybe just commiserate. Think about clients. How many times have you had clients that you're getting really great results for them and you still got fired? Does that happen to you?
You become a victim of your own success, right? Because either or sometimes you're a victim of your own success because they have the budget to all of a sudden bring in their own teams to grow an internal team. No, we've also had cases where
messed up something on like communication. Like, we've had situations recently where we kind of messed up something on like the kid gloves, or like, we're like, there's eggshells a little bit around like a particular thing, even though we've got 300% more traffic and 100% more leads year over year. We messed it up because they were like fragile a little bit, and we did something wrong in the posting of content or something like that. So that's been tough for us too, a little bit, where we're getting good results, but we're such like we're a workhorse agency, and we're also like a bull in a china shop sometimes, because we're like aggressive, but we're not like super deep. Like, I wouldn't say Hook Agency is super detail oriented and to the perfection. We are aggressive and we get a lot done and we get a good result. But then when it comes down to like very minute details, I think we are a little worse at that. So that's kind of like something we've struggled with, where we'd lose a client because of some of that stuff, or like because we didn't say something right, even though we're getting good results. So that's just something we've gone through recently. I'm sure somebody else out there can commiserate with that, but
yeah, probably. I think sometimes for us, it ends up being maybe like a relationship thing where sometimes we'll be humming along just fine in a client. We'll be getting great year over year results. Client's happy, management's happy. Then someone retires, someone leaves, someone changes jobs. And then you have to come in and all of a sudden a new CMO comes in, or a new VP of marketing, or a new management comes in, and they're like, okay, well, who are these guys? Who are these clowns? I've already got my own team. Or sometimes a company will do really well, and then a company will get acquired. And so acquisitions are big in our world too, where it's like, hey, guess what? The company did so well, they got acquired, and the company they got acquired by, they've already got a big agency of record. And so,
or they just have a bunch of in-house people. We're having
really
one of those conversations.
And that's honestly, I've just learned to accept that as kind of the normal course of business, right? It happens. And that's kind of why I get back to my, I think I'm gonna circle back to the employee being more valuable than the client, because I've said this over the years too. It's like, sometimes like, hey, look, clients come and go. There's always a client coming on. There's always a client maybe going for whatever reason. Either their business is winding down, or they're just having trouble in the market or whatever. I said, but it's the employees that really give the stability. So so it's that. But we've definitely been there. Now, we have had cases where We've also had other cases where we've done really well for a client. The engagement, all of our big engagements. Here's another food for thought item for you. Like all of our big engagements start out small. Every single large enterprise level client we have started out the first couple months, they were relatively small. And so when I'm trying to, and it seems to work, it's hard to sign a client, to sign this new client and all of a sudden get, $30,000 to $40,000 a month from them right out of the gate. It's kind of hard to do. And so what you'll end up getting is some smaller clients, or some clients that maybe they're larger organizations. They're not like, they're the sweet spot where maybe they're the size of an organization you want that has the kind of budgets where they can grow to a good sized client for you. And then you set yourself up to be able to grow with them. And then your job kind of shifts a little bit. I mean, we've had some of the most successful engagements we've had with clients have been where maybe when we start out, maybe we are the marketing department. We're the entire marketing department. We're doing everything for them. We're doing their email, we're doing their analytics, we're doing all their paid search, we're doing all their SEO, we're their web dev team, things like that. Then first thing they oftentimes do is the first thing they'll do is they may hire some kind of a creative person, like a graphic, like a designer, maybe a writer or something like that. Okay, no problem. Then it makes sense for them. They're doing enough volume in email, so they want to hire somebody on to do a lot of the tactical work in email. Well, you might think, well, that's bad for us because we were doing their emails, so then we lose that piece. It's like, well, we lose some of the tactical piece, but as they grow and as they grow their program, their emails get much more sophisticated. And so then our tactics shift a little bit, both to the strategic standpoint, helping them kind of plan this out strategically, and then doing a lot of the back-end development integration work on setting up the automations, the triggers, things like that, marketing automation, stuff like that. So we've had a lot of engagements that have worked out like that. And that's a great way for us to look at things. And so that's just what's really worked for us. And so I don't know if that's something that would work for you guys, because I know you guys do a lot of roofers and construction firms, correct?
Yeah. So over half of our clients are in home improvement. We have a good amount of medical and some like software and B2B stuff too. I'm looking at probably a little bit, like sometimes like we get into clients where they're, let's say, on the edge of construction, like some more like commercial construction type stuff. Like we're starting to get in a little bit bigger clients, or like materials and those types of things. We're occasionally busting into stuff like that. And it's kind of fun to see those, because I will say sometimes small businesses are a little exhausting. Just because they're not because they're, it's not even because they're not that sophisticated. Sometimes it's just because they like the professionalism is a little low sometimes. And I feel like I grew up in my marketing career on small business. So I feel bad saying it, but there is something about that where it's like, it's nice to work with people that are like just acting professional and aggressive. Like, part of bigger business, they're bigger because a lot of times they've been more aggressive and they've been conscientious and they've worked. So you're not a bad person because you're in a mid-sized to bigger business, right? Like sometimes you worked your butt off and now you're winning. That's not the worst thing ever. And it's hard to sort through small businesses and like look at like which one of these has really got the potential to scale. Like that's hard to be that. Sometimes you're a little bit of like a Shark Tank with your like prospects. You're like, this one looks like it's gonna like actually push. This one doesn't.
Let me ask you this.
That's harsh. So, I'm being harsh.
One thing I've gotten much better disciplined at is the sales discovery process. And so I got, I kind of got schooled in that a few years ago. And of course it takes a little time to change the behavior of a well-established adult, but I've learned to do a better job and ask the right questions up front when we're talking to a prospect.
Sure. What kind of questions do you ask?
Because, well, number one, I think, so one of the questions that a lot of times agencies don't think about is like, well, tell me about your past experience working with agencies. How many agencies have you worked with in the past, in the past few years, for example?
Yeah.
There was one, I interviewed one client one time and one prospect, and turns out they've worked with 4 agencies in the past 4 years. And so I'm like, okay, not all of them can be bad.
Yeah, that's good.
I'll give you one, at least one, maybe even two, but 4 out of 4.
Two's possible.
Two's possible, but they can't
3,
all be bad.
yeah,
Okay?
yeah. There might be a common denominator here.
And so it's like, so why do you think those don't work? Why do you think those didn't work out?
Yeah,
You start to probe a
exactly.
little bit deeper, then it's like, this, I don't think it's really gonna work out.
Yeah,
I
we're not
think-
going to fix all the problems
Right.
you've ever had with agencies. It's
if,
going to
if
be
you
hard
can
for us
if you
to do
can
that.
move forward and understand to them, it's like, thinking about, it's like, look, tell me in your terms, what does success look like? It's like, if you look, if we sign with you and we work together, if you look back a year from now, for you to be able to say, hey, the best thing we ever did was hire NordicClick, what would it take? In your mind, what would it take for you to say that? I think I ask that question a lot. And
I love that one because it also helps them imagine, right? It helps them imagine working with you and what that would be like. I think that's a good kind of mental exercise.
Well, and also it might help you if somebody's if you've got a home builder that says, well, I want to rank #1 on Google for home builder, and you're like, whoa, okay,
yeah,
I need to set your expectations here.
Yeah, exactly. No, totally. Okay, so you talk about. Well, you've talked about a previous podcast. Sorry, I did a little research here.
You did.
The satisfaction. Yeah, exactly. Well, I did, and somebody did for me. So the big satisfaction in hiring staff and then seeing them grow as professionals. What are some examples in your experience of seeing staff grow as human beings, and why is that so satisfying to you?
It's you're doing something that's greater than yourself. The first time that when you hire somebody, and maybe if this has happened to you yet, then great, but the first time that you hire somebody, or the first time that one of your employees buys a house, gets a mortgage, or has a child, or does some kind of a life milestone, and then it kind of gives you an extra sense of, I'm kind of, this person's livelihood is in part based on, my ability to make good decisions for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that's really cool to see. I think from a professional standpoint, I've had cases where, in the last year, one of our employees has gotten to speak at a couple of conferences, at SMX and PubCon, and that was a very satisfying thing, just to be able to see somebody step up and do that. And
absolutely,
a year or two ago, one of our employees, I write for Search Engine Journal like every other month, and so they the editor asked if anyone would be interested in writing some kind of a local search thing, and I'm like, well, I'm not qualified to write that, but I know somebody in my team who is, and so I asked him if he wanted the opportunity, and he jumped at it, and so he wrote it and got some good response, and so that was very satisfying to see. It's just gratifying to see things like that. I don't know. I guess it's just kind of part of being a good human, right? You want to be able to see people that you believe in do well. So, and there's also a certain satisfaction when you realize that, one of our employees right now they're building a house out in Woodbury, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
We hired this guy when he was probably about a year out of college, and and he sent a note saying, hey, thanks for taking a chance on a shaggy-haired kid from Wisconsin, and so it's very gratifying to see him
that
build a house. So
that's huge, man. And I think even just for me, it's useful to just imagine that for like I said, we have younger employees and stuff like that, but just to imagine over time that happening and how that's motivating for me for sure.
Yeah.
Something I've struggled with. I'm just going to go real for a second, so it's as useful to as many people as possible, including myself. It's weird at a certain point in your agency. The hustle used to be something that if I hustled at them for, let's say, 3 days in a row, I really pushed, I could see the needle move in my business. I could see it move. Hustle doesn't quite do as much as it used to. It's a bigger ship, right? We're wielding a bigger ship. And the only thing I can do to get the ship to move is I have to motivate people on my team. And I have to make sure the right processes are in place. Otherwise, it's like I've got the rudder in the wrong direction and I'm cranking the motor. I'm going to be spinning in circles, right? So this idea of it's kind of like I'm mourning. I'm sad. It's difficult, and it's been a weird year, and it's been tough. I'm mourning the loss of like the fact that hustle used to do a lot more in my business, and I'm having to like come to terms with this struggle of like I have to motivate people and make sure there's processes and motivation. Like I have to think bigger. I can't just work 3 16-hour days and fix my business. You know, it's a weird world. How do you get over that hump? Like I know you've been probably through
hustle
some of
doesn't
that.
scale, right? Hustle does not scale, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't scale. You know, I think number one, it's like if you find, you know, number one, it's like you always have to be on the lookout for people that you believe are smarter than you, or people who I only want to hire people who I believe are smarter than me, right? And so I'm like, you know, just hire people who are smarter than me. When it comes to the processes and things like that, as far as letting go, I mean, you're experiencing something that every entrepreneur does, right? It's your baby, and so you know, no one knows it like you. No one is as vested as you, right, in your baby. So obviously you're most passionate about it, and you're motivated most to do the hustle. And but it is not sustainable. I think and I say this as somebody, look, we're not perfect at this. I don't know anybody who is. And so and plus this, as you said, it's been a weird year. I mean, if we were talking about a year ago, asking for all of your 2020 predictions were out the window by March, right? It's like nothing happened as we thought it was going to happen. I have found that there are things that I'm a big believer in checklists. Even just like, it's simple. If you go back to like the 1970s, it's like air travel became a whole lot safer when all these regulations came in place about having these checklists for mechanics, pilots, for flight attendants.
Checklist Manifesto. Did you read that book?
I haven't read it. I've heard about it, but I haven't read it.
It's basically a lot about that, and basically it helps. Yeah.
Right. And so the thing is, you start almost. It's almost like you start with that. It's like, okay, think about all the things in your business. What are the things that should be a part of a checklist? Not everything is, but I mean, our business is part art and part science, right? And it's hard to create a checklist for the art part, but for certainly the scientific part, the measuring part, the numbers part, the stuff that's just here's a task that needs to be done every day or once a week or once a month or something like that. It's easy to create that sort of a process and that the kind of the way of doing things. I mean, we've got kind of a NordicClick way of doing things, which is kind of a series of checklists and a series of tasks. And here's what we do. Here's the cadence we do, with this type of a client. And so I think it's, if you don't have that, I would recommend, putting that together, taking the time to put them, and then to get your people motivated, it's like, pick some of the people who do it best, ask them to build it. Say, hey, can you help me build this checklist? It's like based on, and by the way, don't be shy. If you think that there's something we're missing here that we're not doing as good as we should, then let's talk about it. And maybe we add this to your checklist, and then give them the task of maybe, somebody who's a little bit more senior level or mid or senior level to kind of train them up, give them the task of owning that checklist and maintaining it. It's like, hey, here's your task. Your task is to own and maintain this because we got to scale. I, Tim Brown, have to go out and find more business. I have to go out and
exactly.
try to guide this company to the next level. So, is this helping at all?
Absolutely. Yep. You broke up there for 1 second there.
Yeah, you did too. So you did too. I don't know if it was me or you.
Sorry. Absolutely. So I agree with you 100%. I think that's super good. The hardest part, I think, with because we have like a wiki, which is kind of like standard operating procedures, is just making sure also that those get used, right? Like we have it's just making sure those get used, and then also, when we're trying to figure that out. So, anyways, these are very good things, and I think checklists is a really good way to push on it too, because it like the how-to guides or whatever. Sometimes become just like management chaff that doesn't get used, but I think a checklist is a little bit more actionable, specific, that kind of thing. No, yeah, this has been super helpful. I think to me, just a mindset wise thing, just that reminder that a good employee is better than a great client in a lot of ways. So I think that's huge.
I mean, don't get me wrong, you want great clients too.
No, absolutely. No, I know you weren't saying that naively though, but I think it's a good kind of like mindset shifter too. And then also, I think we talked about the biz dev, the questions. I think we've talked about a couple other things that I think will be super useful to people. Can I just could you give a kind of a explanation real quick of your guys' ideal types of customers, just mindset wise? I like to give everyone an opportunity, because I have had a lot of niched clients on this thing, and I just want to almost make sure that we have the referral conversation at the end of each of these. So if you see this type of client and it's not your fit, talk to Adam about it. Are there some specific types of clients that you guys handle very well, or specific needs that you guys are good at?
Sure. Our best clients, I mean, we have some SMB clients, we have some enterprise level clients. I'd say clients that I would consider to be a sweet spot would be, if it's a company that's somewhere between that 50 and $500 million organization that is looking to take their marketing to the next level. We do both B2B and B2C. We do a lot of, we're really good at working within specific technologies as well. So we do a lot of work in Salesforce Marketing Cloud.
Okay,
so
that's
good.
Good.
Clients that, funny thing is we end up becoming the cheap part of that equation, because Salesforce Marketing Cloud is it's a technology that's you gotta have deep pockets to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
It's probably about $500,000.
Yeah, I just was talking to somebody
minimum $500,000 a year license, right? So if we can support that and help them build it and build some back end hooks and integrations and things like that, we become the cheap part of that. Also, it's
awesome.
being able to understand how to work within certain platforms like Sitecore and Kibo and Adobe and things like that. That can be very valuable for certain clients too. So we're because
we don't even touch that. So if somebody came to me and said Sitecore, actually we have worked with a client like that, but in general, we're not signing new clients like that. So hey, if you're in Sitecore, if they're in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, if you said Kibo is another one.
Kibo Commerce, yeah.
Talk to Adam and talk to the guys over what's your guys' URL?
NordicClick.com, www.NordicClick.com. So
you guys have been OGs in the Minnesota market for a long time. I think I've been kind of looking up to you guys for a long time. So I appreciate you having this conversation with me. Is there anything else you want to say to people before we sign off?
No, I just, hey, thanks for having me, Tim, and appreciate good talking to you, and keep posting good stuff on LinkedIn. I'm a fan of yours. So.
Awesome. Appreciate that very much.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.